So, Officer Betty Shelby out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, if you remember last year, she killed Terence Crutcher. Now, that story was his car had broke down in the middle of the road. He was walking. She pulled up. She started to tell him to put his hands up. He was walking away with his hands up. She shot him and ended up killing him. And as we saw on the video at that time period, they were consoling her, just leaving this brother just to die in the middle of the street like he's a animal or something. And so this case finally went to trial, and what ended up happening, not guilty. And in my opinion, it doesn't surprise me at all. But let's go ahead on and hear the family and how they felt about the not guilty verdict with Betty Shelby.
A cover-up was exposed. They walked by my brother to go check on Betty Jo. In the last few breaths of my brother's life, he laid there alone. And nobody held his hand. Nobody said, Terrence, or hey, are you okay? He had to lay there alone. And these are officers who are paid to serve and protect us. Paid and served to protect us. Trained to deal with people who are supposedly intoxicated or inebriated. But yet you use deadly force? No weapon was found. Terrence had just left school. Terrence had just left Tulsa Community College. Because he wanted to do something with his life. And I just thank God that he doesn't judge us as our sins deserve. Yeah. So all of the critics that are out there who are trying to judge my brother's last statement was, God is going to get the glory out of my life. And I'm going to make sure that I don't rest until we get reform for this police department in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we change the culture of this corrupt police department. And I believe that all of those officers involved, they're going to be held accountable. Because this family right here, we believe in a higher power. We believe in a higher judge. And so now we got to go home. We have to go home and hug on his 4 kids. And love on them and explain to them a system that's perpetuated so much injustice, a justice system that's perpetuated so much injustice. And I promise you, I won't rest until we break that chain. That's right. Let's go. That's right.
I think for Attorney Crump and I, we're astounded that this jury could look at the evidence that was presented in front of them and allow Betty Shelby to walk out this courtroom. The most astounding thing for us as lawyers, as officers of the court, is to see the Tulsa Police Department admit under oath, on the stand, to what the DA determined as a setup from day one. from what the DA said was a way to make Betty Jo Shelby the victim. A way for what the DA stated as a cover-up for the death of Terence Crutcher Sr., father of 4, twin sister to 1, son to loving parents. Let's not forget that Terrence is the victim here. It was Terrence that was killed in the street. And one thing that we are thankful for in this night of injustice is that so much of what TPD has done in this case has been exposed in this court of law.
On the heels of Eric Gardner in New York, Michael Brown in Ferguson, Freddie Gray in Baltimore, the list just goes on and on of unarmed African-American men being killed by white police officers, and they get away with it. I really thought that with the incredible job that the district attorney did in showing the lies and the cover-up of this investigation, that Tulsa would be the example that said all American citizens are granted their due process of the law. And it does not matter if you are a young African-American man. Unfortunately, I was wrong.
I wanted to talk about the constant not guilty or mistrials that we'll see with these police officers. Now, a lot of us in the black community internalize it as this is a race thing, and race is part of it. But you really need to think about how the Caucasians think about police officers. Understand something. Most of the police in this country are Caucasians, and Caucasian male at that. Some of them, they know in their families. Some of them go to church with the police chief or see them at the grocery store all the time, and they're nice with them. They talk with them, and they would never think they would do anything wrong. And if they have to shoot somebody, it's because they were shooting at them or they was in fear of their life. In their communities, they don't see the police planting weapons on other white people. They don't see them shooting white people for no reason. They don't see them beating the hell out of white people for no reason. You know, like how they do us. So in their mindset, the police is there to serve and protect them. And they do that. And they especially protect them from blacks. So they have a bias toward the police officers in a good way for them. Hey, this is our experiences with them. They serve and protect us. We go to church with them. We know the prosecutor so-and-so, judge so-and-so. They just have a great idea about law enforcement. Of course, I will say most of them, not all, but most of them, because notice how they all respond the same way when it comes to police shooting incidents. Now, let's bring the race aspect into it. We know that most people's perception of black people, especially in the Caucasian community, is not because they live around you. It's because what they see on the idiot box TV, or what they may see on a computer screen, what they may see on a mobile phone. And the propaganda, as you well know, black people commit crime. Black people joke. Black people play basketball. Everything is with some sort of stereotype. So when you look at a person like Terence Crutcher, he's a big, dark-skinned black man. Why was he big and scary? It's because that is the negative stereotype and bias that is taught to them about black people through media propaganda and also upbringing within their household. So if they have all these negative stereotypes about black people committing crimes, but yet when a Caucasian commit a crime, they minimize it, don't even talk about it, or keep it locally. So you take a person going into a courtroom with a jury, being a part of the jury. They think police is the greatest thing since sliced bread. They don't do them nothing wrong. Then you have a black person, a black male, especially a dark-skinned black male that's good size. He was a criminal. This is what they normally do. I see it on the news all the time. Can't back it up really with facts about crime, but this is just what I see. And what I see is just the truth, period. So they combine those two things together. So when they go sit in that courtroom, it's easy for them to say, oh, well, I'm unsure, even though they may have a video like Michael Slager, shoot him in the back, but still a mistrial. You get what I'm saying? Until they did the federal case. Or they don't want to charge a police officer, like with the situation with Tamir Rice, or you could see a tape like Eric Garner. Completely watch them choke him out. They don't even want to bring it to trial. The grand jury no bill it. This is what you see when you have a predominantly Caucasian jury pool. Now, on the Betty Shelby case, they had 2 black women on the jury and they had 1 black man as an alternate. But it doesn't matter about them. The fact is a not guilty, period. I don't know if the 2 black women voted for not guilty, but it ended up being not guilty. So when I hear these cases come up of a white cop killing a black person, it shocks me when I hear a guilty verdict. I'm sorry. It just shocks me because between those 2 biases that I'm talking about blacks and a bias they have about the police, and you notice how they do it. They raise thousands upon thousands of dollars like this for a cop because they feel like, oh my God, I got to protect him. He protects me or she protects me. And I know he's just a good person. And that black person's a thug anyway. I mean, why would the police be trying to do a fight with them? I know that's what it is. So they are a victim in this situation. You get what I'm saying? Even Betty Shelby said he forced me to do that to him. That's what she said about him, just like a slave master would say. Well, the only reason I beat you 100 lashes is because you forced me to beat you 100 lashes. Well, the only reason I killed this slave is because he forced me to do it. Not that I chose to do it. He forced me to do it. So that's the thing when we look at when it comes to these juries and a black victim and a white officer. That's just really what it is. You can not agree with it or whatever, but this is based off of a theory that I have seen over and over and over and over again. Yes, like I said before, race do play a part of it, but it's not the whole thing. It's a combination of the 2. And this is why at the end of the day, we don't get any justice and we have a Caucasian jury. It's just that simple. Now, if we had more of a black jury, we'll start getting some justice then, but it's not going to happen because they want to make sure that these prosecutors can win their cases, period. So they want to lock us up. We gone. Want to protect the cop? Just put a Caucasian jury. That's really what it is. Now, if they really want to make cases even and make law even, they should do the police department like they do everything else. Blend it out. Same thing with jury pools. Make sure they blend it out where you have an equal amount of all groups of people. That way the race thing never can come up. At least not in the majority it can come up. Because you have people of all groups there and you have different mindsets because not every group has a pro-police bias and not every group has a issue with different races of people as well or a inherent bias. So you understand the inherent bias that's taught in a lot of Caucasian homes, not all, but a lot of them is be careful of black people. They'll do this to you. They'll do that. Now, I'm not saying in the a radical Caucasian terrorist. I'm not saying that. They're not part of the out there with torches with Richard Spencer, and they're not in the Klan and none of that. I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but inherent bias is taught at home, and they enact that. You see that on your jobs. You see that, like say, with cops. You see that everywhere, and that's the problem. And see, the dangerous thing about their inherent bias is they have power with it, and they can affect you. And that's when we talk about racism. People say, well, racism is not what you guys say it is. Yes, it is. It's your inherent bias plus you have power, and that's how it affects us. If you just had an inherent bias toward black people, then we wouldn't care because you didn't have the power to affect us. That's what make us say what we say about racism. But, this family suffering, upset, and I don't understand Benjamin Crump anyway. Bruh, you seen what happened with Trayvon Martin. You seen what happened with all these different ones, and you getting convinced. Y'all have to stop being silly. Know the country you live in, know the history of this country, and know that the same people is still in the country today. It don't matter if they didn't grow up through Jim Crow time period. They teach the same thing they taught them back then. That's why you still see the same results that you see now. But, I know it's messed up for the family, and my hearts go out to them. I know they're upset. And like I always say, I pray that woman don't have peace for the rest of her life because nobody's God to be taking anybody's life around here. I hope she never get a wink of sleep the rest of her life either, because what she did was just completely wrong. And I can't even co-sign that at all. Make sure to join me on Patreon for a minimum of $2 or $5 per month. And on Patreon, get exclusive videos, information about the platform that you don't get publicly, and also discounts on merchandise. Share the video, like the commentary, and subscribe for more news stories.